Okay, so hello. Um, this is going to be a special kind of thing because I think this is actually the first time since I've started Rhapsody that I have not been streaming on May 4th. May 4th, I am not just denoting that date because of the Star Wars thing. May 4th is the anniversary of Rhapsody. So it's our anniversary. So it's kind of, I guess, big deal question mark. Um, but yeah, it's kind of our anniversary. So yeah, it's I believe this is going to be going into year 4. So we've fully done 3 years of Rhapsody. So hooray for that. We've expanded much more than when we originally started. So yeah, there's that. So still doing it, and I don't think I'm going to be stopping anytime soon because, especially now that we've entered a new generation, I have a whole bunch of more stuff that I can, take a look at. I don't see this stopping anytime soon. So yeah, I figured I'd just do not really a video, but doing just a thing, to kind of celebrate, and also just to go over just some update stuff. I know I did one back, I think I did was back in April or late March. But I figured since it's the actual date, I'll just do a full status update and just kind of go over some things that, just with the channel. So I'm going to do this. This is going to be not edited. It is just going to be me rambling. I'm going to do this in the way of looking at past, present, and future. So past, looking at the past year, future, looking at some stuff going on now, and future, stuff that I'm doing, forward. So I guess there's that. The date that I'm doing I'm doing this, or recording this, May 2nd, which is the Sunday. I have just uploaded the episode on Inherit the Earth into YouTube. Just gotta do the time codes and all that, but then that'll be that. So that is when I'm actually recording this. And that's not like I'm doing this a couple weeks beforehand. Of course, I just do this at practically the last possible second. But then again, got everything done with Inherit the Earth. So we are good to go, I guess. I don't know what my point was. Anyway, so let's talk about past stuff. This is not also just going to be about Rhapsody. It is in fact going to be about my entire suite of kind of things. And also I just realized there's probably something I should talk about in terms of that, but that'll be during the present segment. Anyway, so I'm going to do this on a show-by-show basis, just kind of go over some things that, just kind of some overview of kind of some of the things that had happened during the past, and also, just going over the shows and just thoughts on it. So anyway, I'm going to start with Rhapsody because that is probably my biggest kind of project. Also, the first one. So yeah, during the past year, not really much has changed. We're still kind of doing the same thing. Still going strong with the format I'm kind of liking this format of doing kind of my Fridays being your standard, just kind of usually look at some things or one long thing. Just kind of the standard thing that the show started with. Saturdays have just been kind of used if I've had to do like co-op or versus stuff, usually do it there, but it could just be another kind of long play or just kind of multiplay kind of thing, taking a look at a couple games. And Sunday being the long play game, I feel is probably going to be the standard. Did try a few times to do versus stuff on Sundays. I feel like Sunday is such a kind of it's very much hit or miss in terms of like versus stuff, because people might be doing stuff on Sunday. It is the last day of the weekend, so I don't know whether or not Saturday or Sunday. I'm pretty sure Saturday is a much better day to do versus stuff, so I'm likely just going to be keeping Sundays for long play and other kind of just casual, like taking a look at one thing in particular. something I don't have to set up a lot of games. But that is going strong. So yeah, just talking about Retro and Rhapsody. So one thing I have noticed, and this has been a problem with kind of the show, and it's something that is kind of I'd say a big part of the show, but it's something that has been, it's something I've been doing for a long time, especially since there are some that are still unresolved as of the start of the show, is requests. Requests I've been trying to get a little bit more request stuff out. One thing that we started last December was the box mystery, which is a good way that I could put in a lot of stuff that was requested and have it show up in a way that I don't have to schedule it. It just kind of may or may not show up, and that seemed to work pretty good. However, it's just, especially since there's just been stuff that has been sitting there, the list has been just constantly growing. So as of today, which was May 2nd, I don't know if you've watched the last couple of weeks of stuff, but I have temporarily, I'm not shutting down the system as a whole. I am just shutting it down indefinitely, as in, I'm never really satisfied with the speed at which I turned out requests, because I have to balance, the stuff. Like I have somewhat of a view of like, okay, I want to do this, this, and this, and then requests are kind of get me sidetracked a little bit off of it, or I have to, unless I like devote myself to requests, which, I'll go into it a little bit, after I just kind of say, just never really was satisfied with the ratio of stuff for requests too. Because I'll say, like, the request stuff, the problem with the requests is that there's just way too many of them. The way that I had set the prices, even after I swapped over to Stream Elements, which meant that I basically increased the time it took to do what should have increased the time it took to get request stuff in, should have been lengthened. It still was not nearly enough, in my opinion. I feel like people were getting requests in a little bit too soon after that, which, again, that's not a fault of anyone in particular doing the request. It's just, it's the economics of doing it on my back end that I have to set up, that it's something that I just got to work with. Which that's one thing that the reason I stopped is just, there's just so many of them. I pared down a lot of them by putting stuff into the boxes of mystery, both the regular box of mystery that I do during relief stuff, and now the long play one. There's still, after I just put in everything from the last bit of the Stream Elements, there's still 49 things on this list, including things of short value, of like short, long, very long, and themes. So yeah, there's a lot in here. And until I pare this down, I really don't want to start just adding more, because I just want to get it over with. I just want to clear out everything, and then maybe once I clear out everything, I'll reevaluate the request system. But right now, I'm putting a pause to it so I can get a hold of it. So yeah. Because I do kind of want to go over, there's a few other reasons why I stopped doing requests, especially a big one being that now that I've expanded this was kind of a slight issue prior, but it's especially coming up more often now that I have basically expanded the timeline in which of kind of accepted stuff up into the PS2 era. I'm starting to run into a thing of, there is a really weird period of requested stuff that is from about the period of, say, late 90s to, I would say, going all the way up to even like 2013, of things that just are really weird to run now, especially computer stuff. Stuff that runs in DOS, or stuff that's like post-DOS but before like Windows XP. just tends to be incredibly difficult to set up. And now that is a thing, that is now more often being requested, which usually takes a good amount of time for me to set up, because I don't like going into streams without having it work prior, because I feel like just setting up during a stream tends to be very frustrating, because, I'm trying to, show the thing off and it's not working. And I don't want to be in a stream where half of it is just trying to solve technical difficulties, because that's just frustrating on everyone's part. So I really would rather not do that. So I want to make sure it works fine. But then again, I have a full-time job, even expand a little bit more than that. And my time is, precious to me. A big part of why I changed the Hazeltown Story radio stuff, it's just so I had more free time, because I was starting to, see that I was losing free time just based on the amount of stuff that I had to do. And requests are starting to kind of burn into that a little bit. So yeah, there is that. That's one part of it. Also, things like PS2 games can be a little bit finicky to emulate. Like, I know, especially there is one that is like notoriously hard to emulate, which means that that's me trying to have to figure that out. Two, which goes into my next bit, which I'm starting to run into a little bit more, which is something that I'm definitely going to incorporate into the new request, which is I am probably going to start flat out denying requests, which are something that I have to put money into, because I'm starting to have that come across a little bit more often. More because it's the weird touchy subject, because I don't like talking about personal finance stuff, because that's usually a little bit, I find it to be a little bit rude. But I mean, it's not going to hurt to occasionally have to make it like a $5 purchase. But then again, it's still something that I have to dish out, especially if you think about, well, it's not just one person doing it. It can be up to 10 people doing it, just requesting, and that can be a little bit of a chunk of change, if it adding it all up. Especially if it's something that I have to really set up, especially if I have to get a hold of something more obscure, like talking about the end of emulation stuff. It's just something I just don't want to deal with it, to be honest. And I just find that I just would rather just, if it's a request game, I kind of just want them to be things that's I can just, run it, and just, it's not that big a deal. Those are the requests that I will always be pretty much up for. If it's something that I don't have to buy, basically it's something that's that can easily run. Which weirdly enough is, even after expanding, there are a few things that are really good. GameCube games, for example. Dolphin is a fantastic emulator. So usually if you request me a GameCube game, I'm pretty much going to be able to do it, with some very few exceptions, which I don't even know what they are. But I've basically been able to run, and Dolphin's been able to handle anything I've run at it, or thrown at it. So that should be fine. But basically my point is, I'm going to be a little bit more picky with my request, because just out of courtesy, I don't really want to have to deal with that, to be honest. But yeah. Also, especially going back to another thing that, now that I'm thinking about it, this isn't meant to be something that this is meant to be rambly, so I'm just gonna, I guess I'll just bring it up. One thing that I kind of feel like there is especially with the amount of them, I feel like I'm having to devote more time to these requests, especially the theme stuff, because the kind of ideal ratio that I have in mind for requests is that requests should not really exceed about maybe 5 or 10% of the things I totally look at in total. But I feel like it's starting to expand past that. especially since I've now had to devote I was going to devote the entirety of July going through theme requests, and that's still not all of them. But I'm going to spread them out over a larger period. But I already do January's to be just nothing but reviewer requests. So I feel like it's, taking up a little bit too much time, to be honest. Also, it's the thing that I feel like there is the thing that I've always wanted to do with Retro Rank Rhapsody, or a thing like my driving, the thing that I felt like I wanted to do when I made Retro Rank Rhapsody, the reason why I did ranking of shmups and just streams in general, is I'm more interested in taking a look at weird stuff, weird and obscure stuff like, things like, I don't know, like Kadelka. Like, I loved, Kadelka was really good to look at. But not just, pointing out Kadelka, but, stuff like Ernest Evans, which is not necessarily stuff that's good, but stuff that's at least interesting. And stuff that's, they might not be that great, but they at least have some idea to it. And I kind of feel like one thing that I really want to emphasize, I'm not trying to call anyone out, because I feel like, people request whatever you want. I gave that thing, so I'm expecting it. This is a thing with the internet in general, is that I kind of feel like there is a element of I feel like one thing that I don't particularly like when it's people who devote themselves to retro stuff, because I don't mind if it's like a variety streamer, that's fine if they do this, but I really hate let's just look at stuff that's we know it's bad, especially licensed stuff that's just been covered all over the place. I just don't want to have that be people just throw that at me, because I feel like that's just, there's far more interesting things I can take a look at. And it's not the kind of thing that I just want to do. But yeah, I don't know where else I'd go with that, but that's just one thing that I feel, that I've just felt with the request system as well, is I want to just kind of maybe curate the things that are requested a little bit more often. But that'll be something that I'll think about going forward. I'm not going to throw out any current requests or anything, but yeah, there is that. That's kind of my thoughts on the request system. It'll come back at some point, don't worry. How long that will be, I don't know. It could be until November. Could be a few months. Could even be a year. Could be a couple months. Who knows? But I do want to kind of sit down and really rethink about how I want to do the request. So yeah, and those are just my thoughts, because I like being honest. Just my thoughts on things. Nothing really keeping me up at night, but it's just something that I thought about the request system. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on that, because I feel like that's kind of the major change that happened with Retro Rank Rhapsody, especially one thing I want to cover. So yeah, that's kind of been the major change with Retro Rank Rhapsody over the last year. And by that I mean just now, but it's something that I'd been going over the past couple years. So there's that. Other thing that I want to cover, I might as well cover it now, because it's something that happened last month, which if you've been following, well, actually, nah, let's just cover that in present, because that's more total stream stuff more than anything, except for one thing that, nope, I'm just gonna cover it, because if I just kind of go with that in my head, I'm just gonna continue on. I don't know why I put this, because this is talking about future stuff. I don't know why I put this future stuff in the past, because I have a little guideline or a little time outline that I want to cover stuff in. But Yeah, that's a future thing. So I don't know why I put that there. Uh, yeah, that's kind of the big thing for Retro and Craftsy. Things have been good with that. PS2 stuff. Now that those are out, that's been going well. PS2 can occasionally be. I for the most part, I've had good times with it. Getting it to run at least. So that should be good. And as I said, GameCube stuff. If I can run the GameCube, I'm pleased with that because Dolphin runs perfect. And Xbox stuff, we haven't really had nothing really came up for Xbox stuff outside of Halo, but that we could do it on PC. So yeah, that's basically stuff with Retro Rhapsody. Next up's Media Delta. We did more Media Delta. I don't really have anything to update. I think the show's been going good. People seem to like it. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say. I have now actually saved the questions for when something's number one. That's going to be good for future reference. So maybe at some point I do want to clean up those ones that are asterisks in the list. Stuff like RoboCop, Addams Family, just to make sure that, just got to clean up every once in a while. But we haven't really done that yet. So that's something that's going to be happening in the future. So yeah, there's nothing really else to do Media Delta wise. I think it's going fine. Been really enjoying doing it. It's been something, and that's also something actually for Media Delta that I am probably going to take a point into, because I actually had to do it for the most recent poll, is I'm trying to avoid doing stuff in regards to stuff I have to purchase, because, stuff that has to purchase, people have to watch it. It's a little bit, it free's good. I'll just say that. So, yeah, thankfully, a lot of stuff I've do recently is available for free on YouTube, although maybe it not be legally free, but that's not my problem. That's the person who uploaded it on YouTube's problem. So, yeah, here's that. Media Delta's good. So now the new thing, now that it has actually been a year since it's come out, is Hazeltown Story. Hazeltown Story, I have not heard any negative feedback on it. It seems to be less people are listening to it than Media Delta, probably just because it's something you have to, keep up to date with, which I fully understand. And since I kind of did it as a test to see about like writing stuff for, there's so many, as if you are paid attention to anything on stream, that I've put some stuff into the characters that are meant originally as mascots and kind of building out a world for them. And that's been, I have been enjoying it, and I have been, for the most part enjoying it. There's something that I'll go into that I'll be covering shortly. That was kind of a frustration, but other than that, like actually doing it, I was really liking. I haven't really heard any complaints, so I'll take that as I am still going to continue doing it. So I lost my train of thought. So yeah, we're just going to be doing more Hazeltown Story. It's going to be continuing for the time being, namely because one of the big frustrations that not just me, but the people in the actual, this was a complaint of actually the people in it, much less the people that were watching or listening, is the system that we were using. Because with Hazeltown Story having a specific, like being its own specific world, I had to kind of do a lot of custom stuff or use a game system that would be, could be, you could like tweak it, and it's meant for, a universal thing. And we ended up using the game system Genesis, which is I like some of the things that Genesis did. I don't think it's a bad system. However, it turned out to be a little bit clunky for the kind of setting that I had. It really seems that Genesis is a scenario in which you will have consistent combat or consistent situations where you are having, I don't know if competitive discussion's not a great way to phrase it, but you're having like battles of various things, either like a kind of a negotiation thing or like actual like combat, like shooty and all that, which made some of the rules really weird if you did not have that regularly occurring. So that has been something that my players have been a little bit frustrated with. Especially another thing with Genesis is that it is a system in which you aren't trying to match numbers. The thing with Genesis is that you roll a number of specifically shaped dice, and each of the dice have symbols on it to denote things like successes, failures, and also advantages and disadvantages and all that, which I would have to interpret that on the fly. But the thing is that sometimes in the scenario when you're rolling something, it's not exactly obvious what that means. So I would have to interpret it. And going by the guides that Genesis gives, it's really hard to interpret something. So that is a problem that we've been having with Genesis, and it's been a consistent problem throughout the entire thing. Lately, what I've been doing, and I'd say lately over the past probably month and a half, I believe I started this mid-March. But we're going on to a new system. So that is something that is going to be changing going forward. So there is that. So I'll go over that more in the future segment. But just a short synopsis of what my thoughts on Hazeltown Story was. It seems like the recording sessions, when I do it on Twitch, seems to be a little bit lower numbers. The thing with that you can kind of explain with it is either people who aren't like in the middle, like people who aren't caught up. It can be a little bit problematic for them to kind of watch something that they're in the middle of. Also, people who want to listen to the audio or YouTube version or the edited version, which is a little bit more cleaned up. So yeah, I can see why those are live. Right now, I'm still planning on doing these during, streaming hours. However, it's something that we haven't really discussed it in my player group, about possibly doing it now that Media Delta isn't every week. Potentially using that Thursday that we usually use to record to actually do new episodes means that future episodes might not be done on Twitch, but it seems like that might not be the end of the world. You're not really missing stuff because it's neat to see that kind of stuff live, but also it's honestly the stuff I cut out is not that interesting. It's not like I really haven't cut out any sort of content. Outside of stuff at the very end, but really I just kind of, if I have to cut something like that, I usually just kind of do here's what happened. So yeah, that's kind of just been my thoughts on Hazeltown Story and just where it's going to go from here. So yeah, that's kind of been my thoughts on the three big shows. There is that. I suppose I should, well, actually I'll do that in the present. So yeah, I think that pretty much closes up my thoughts on the three shows in the past. So let's talk about stuff going forward. One thing that I just want to briefly touch on, if you were not familiar there on Friday when I announced it, I guess is a way to phrase it. It's also something that's really behind the scenes stuff that I don't really know if it's really that present outside of something that might be going forward. But something that actually happened very recently, I just happened, I think Tuesday, I think it happened. But it's something, it's tied to another thing that happened early on, is that I am now members of technically two teams on Twitch. That was a loud car. Yeah, I'm a part of two teams on Twitch. First one I got into was Wild Abandon, which I don't think it's a bad team. Don't get me wrong. I don't think that they're doing anything. I don't think there's any bad. I don't think they're doing anything bad per se. I feel like their heart's in the right place. One problem that I have with them right now is the fact that they kind of are just open for practically, they're huge. Which, if you are trying to create a support network, which if you're not familiar with what a Twitch team is, practically that's what it is. It's a support team. It's a support group for streamers that it's basically a group of like-minded Twitch streamers that kind of help each other, and there's Twitch integration into making rating easier and stuff like that. So it's basically a support team. And if your team is just so huge, it's really easy to get lost in the crowd, which has kind of been why I haven't really done a whole lot of stuff with Wild Abandon. I'm still technically a member of that team, but never really got any benefit out of it. However, on last Tuesday, I just joined another team, which looks a little bit more promising, which is the Storytellers. It's a group it's very similar to Wild Abandon. It is very much meant for their general mission is that it is streamers and content creators that are basically they have story stuff with them. They are very character based, which a lot of them are furries. So that's also why I fit in there. But yeah, it's very much character based. So that is, I felt like that was right up my alley, especially since I'm doing tabletop stuff and just stuff with my characters. I felt like that was a perfect team for me. And it's a much smaller team. It's still big. It's not 20 people. There's probably 100 people in there now. But it seems to be a much tighter knit group. And it seems like people are willing to help each other a little bit because they're not getting lost in the shuffle. So hopefully that kind of brings good fortune to the team. I've seen some good people there, so hopefully that ends up being good. So yeah, literally looking forward to that. Okay, hopefully this continued here. I had to stop and get some water because up until that point I had been talking nonstop without getting any hydration, which is not a good idea. So now I got some water. Anyway, Storytellers hopefully brings good things. Some other small things that I want to cover before I go into the big present thing, because it's something that just something that I guess technically just happened or kind of results of a experiment I had done over the past month. But before I get into that, a couple of small things I want to go over. One is this is a very small thing. If you're listening to this and you are not a member of the Lolo to Puzzle Discord, one other perk of it, other than the polls, is the fact that Media Delta, now that Discord has added what they call stage channels, Media Delta, we are now recording live. We're not doing it on Twitch, we are doing it in Discord. Because now Discord has a thing where it's a channel that a whole bunch of people can join into it, but only specific people get to talk, which means the people who are meant to be in the episode can be the ones that talk, and everyone can listen in. And it's built into Discord, and it's really easy to use. We've only done one episode of it so far, but it seems like it went good. The recording thing that we used, Craig and Geark, seemed to not throw a hiss fit. In fact, it actually makes it better because it doesn't pick up the bot in there, so it only gives the people give me channels for people who are speaking, which makes editing it's saves 5 seconds, but it's still nice. So yeah, there is that. If you have not been a member of the Discord, another thing, speaking of the Discord and polls, the changing how I did the polls, because as I mentioned earlier, I like to do more obscure things, and one thing that I have found with my polls is that I've actually had to massage some of my polls a little bit in terms of what are in it, because what I have found is if you put something very popular in a poll, that will get picked. Because weirdly enough, people pick what they're familiar with, and that's just how people work. So if I want more obscure things to eventually win sometimes, I gotta do a little bit of obscuring it. Namely, I need to give them a general idea of what they're voting for, but not to actually tell them what they're voting for. I've done this a couple times now, and I've been, satisfied with a couple times I'm doing it, so I'm probably going to do that going forward. I haven't, since I've been doing specific things for the month, I have not done that for Retro Rank Rhapsody yet, which will be interesting. But yeah, probably for Media Delta, that is how I'm probably going to do that going forward. And I'm probably, for when I pick the stuff that's happening in various months going forward, I am probably also going to do the Obscuri thing because I find it fun. I don't know if other people find it fun, but it's my stuff, so I do the thing that I find fun. It's a kind of a crummy way of saying that, but that's being blunt about it. Anyway, so kind of the big thing that I do want to talk about in this present thing is how stuff and I guess technically this has to do with future stuff, but this is present future stuff, but April. As I mentioned, April was a way for me to kind of experiment and tweak the things that I do during a streaming in a month, because it can be anything, even stuff you like doing, but if you do the same thing over and over again, it gets to be a little bit, monotonous, and it can really lead to burnout. And I don't want to burn out on the stuff that I do because I like doing the stuff that I do. So I've been trying to, tweak the things that I've been wanting to do. And as I mentioned when I did the update saying about what the update is, I want to, do more stuff. Like, there's stuff coming out and I want to do it. I don't want to have to, justify it in a Retro Rank Rhapsody way. There could be just a new game that's not related to anything, and I just kind of want to play it. Also, I want to, show off. Not everything that I like showing off is old. So I just want to, occasionally there'll be a new game that comes out and I kind of want to play it. So streaming it is a really good way of showing it off. So yeah, and April was a way for me to test kind of new things that I can do to make it not as, freshen things up a little bit. So in general, I feel like most of the episodes that were in April were generally well received. Stuff like Monster Hunter, stuff like Phasmophobia, Tabletop Simulator. So I'll just go over the episodes in general and what my thoughts on them were. I should have had the schedule open beforehand. That would be what a smart person does, but I am not smart sometimes. Okay, going over the stuff we did in April. So stuff like Monster Hunter Rise and stuff like new Pokemon Snap, which I did on Friday. I enjoyed doing it. Capture card's a little bit weird, but that's going to be anything with a capture card, even stuff I do in Retro Rank Rhapsody. Sorry, I'm doing this while also watching, stream friend Real Selfie Bear do a lot of beat 'em ups, and he's doing Bucky O'Hare in that. Yeah, sorry, I just had to do that. I'm going to keep that in because I'm not editing this shit. Anyway, yeah, I like doing those. So I look forward to doing that more in the future. So yeah, there is that. Probably expect more modern stuff. I'm not going to make it an entire, doing it 5 times a month. But expect at least maybe once or twice a month of taking a look at something new. There's that. The episode when we did stuff in Parsec. Parsec is working pretty well now. They added something that a lot of problems that people had were if they had a non-standard controller, Parsec really didn't like that. So it seems to be working fine with that now. So yeah. Using Parsec more in the future. That's really all there is to say. The episode about doing some of the stream art didn't seem to be that interesting. Also, I find unless I'm looking on something very specific, it just feels weird because I'm like, oh, I'm just working on random stuff and I'm not really good at just doing random stuff. Usually, if I'm working on something, especially in stuff in Asprite, I want to be focused. I want to, I want to be working on something. If I don't have anything I want to work on at the moment, then it's forcing it and it doesn't feel right. So there's that. Let's see. There was Phasmophobia, which that was fun. I don't know if I'll be doing the same game like multiple times. I don't want to like be like pigeonholed into the same thing. But especially Phasmophobia, with it being an early access game, if it adds like new features, that definitely is cause for doing something like that. So maybe we might see more Phasmophobia if they add a whole bunch of new features. But right now, I don't expect to see that again. At least for a little bit. The phone stuff was neat. A common thing that was said during the stream that is technically true, because that is kind of even retro, even if I didn't want to just do it out of anywhere, is the fact that Flash games, the people who did the thing that I used to make I think it was Coffee Break, the things that do the phone stuff, also make Flashpoint, which is basically the same thing, but for Flash games. And Flash games are now starting to become retro, so I'll probably end up doing that at some point in the future. Let's see, there's a Hazeltown Story episode. There's a Parsec. Oh, right, that's not the Parsec. Sorry, I'm looking at the schedule. So yeah, the Parsec's working. The stuff like with Mendefin. Mendefin seemed to work pretty well. That was doing PlayStation stuff and Saturn stuff. Seems to be working pretty well. So if I'm doing PlayStation games, I might end up just using that instead of Parsec or anything else, because Fightcade does not support PlayStation games. So that was good that it worked. Good to know in the future. The episodes in which you talked about PlayStation Underground, people seem to really like that. So I will probably be doing that more in the future. Again, it'll be a very occasional thing, maybe once every couple months. But going through them more is pretty interesting. And that's also a good Sunday thing. So I might do it in between long play stuff, especially if I don't have a next episode or next game pulled. Doing that instead might be fun. Tabletop Simulator was very fun, so I'll probably end up doing more of that. That might be, if there's anything that'll become a more common thing, that would probably be it, because there's so many things in Tabletop Simulator that it is a goldmine in terms of stream content. So there is that. The Retro Ink Relief, the new box system. I think people generally like the new box system. I like it better than doing the numbers, trying to match it to where I think the game's going to land, because it's kind of harder for me to find games that are like in the 1, 2, 3 that are short, because all those games generally have to be short or else you're not getting a whole lot. Because with a relief thing like that, I want to be doing multiple games, like a lot of games in a relief session. So, yep, I enjoyed it, and that's where we're going forward. One thing that I was going to mention, I might end up just doing box episodes, just kind of there, because the box formats, generally with the box thing, especially since I mentioned that I like to test stuff prior, the box stuff is great because I just have to test everything once, and then if I just do a box episode, it's like, oh, everything in here I've tested already. Or even if I add like something new, that's only like 3 games. So it's good. I like doing that. There is that, and I think that, yeah, also we did our first thing. We started Inherit the Earth, which is our first thing of the long play box. It's still kind of getting the mechanics down for it fine, but I do feel like, hey, raffling off here, everyone getting the queue and just picking a name, that seems to work pretty well. It doesn't take a whole lot of time, and it works. And also the thing that happened technically is part of May, but at the very tail end, think of it as April 31st. Taking a look at a lot of ports of a particular game. I really like doing that, and I think it's a nice and fresh way of, taking a look at stuff. So I always find that stuff kind of interesting. So expect more of that in the future. And I think that's going to be a more standard feature, probably trying to do it maybe at least once a month. I might even go back and do stuff or recover stuff that I've already ranked. So I think that'll be a good thing for that. So that's kind of my thoughts on the things that happened outside of April, which was my experimental month. A lot of good things I found. So found a lot of good ways to freshen up the channel. So speaking of freshening up the channel, stuff that's going to happen in the future. In particular, I already mentioned the stuff I'm doing for Retro Rank Rhapsody. That's pretty much covered most of that. Media Delta, still staying Media Delta. Hazeltown's story, however, is going to be changing quite a bit. So me in particular, I want to give a massive shout out to Carnival, who has been with Hazeltown Story since the start. Even helped with me picking out Genesis in general. Me and Carnival had been working out a new game system, like actually creating one from scratch, with an asterisk, I should say. So Hazeltown Story is going to be moving to a system that is heavily derived from the Forged in the Dark system, although there are also massive influences from the Powered by the Apocalypse engine and Genesis itself. But yeah, we made a custom game system that we're going to be using going forward that should be a little bit more attuned to how, the arcs of Hazeltown Story have gone so far. Mostly investigative stuff, but there is some stuff for combat. In general, it should be a much better system, and I'm really looking forward to testing it out. We spent probably at least over a month trying to build this thing, which I know for something scratch, it generally doesn't sound like a short amount of time, but a lot of the stuff was already there. Thank you for Forged in the Dark for giving like an SR, like a source, and being very open with having people, doing a lot of homebrew stuff. And that is very nice, and I'm really looking forward to testing that out. Also, especially since it will allow us to do a new format, because the thing with Hazeltown Story now, what I've been doing, with the exception of the last 2 episodes, is that usually with a recording session, I have to manually go and check to see, okay, here's a break time, here's something else. So this new system will give us a new way of very naturally breaking up when the recorded episodes of Hazeltown Story are. So I am generally I am very much working. If it works the way I'm expecting it to, I'll be very happy. Because it will be a much more natural way for not only for me to know how long an episode should be in the editing wise, also getting multiple people in should be much better. It should be a lot easier to kind of set things up like that. So that is Hazeltown Story. We're doing a new thing. It should be, hopefully, I'm looking forward to it. So that's, I think I've talked long enough about, Hazeltown Story, Retro Rank Rhapsody, and Media Delta. So last year, I introduced Hazeltown Story. So I feel like every year I've been introducing something because, started Retro Rank Rhapsody. Then the year after that, I started Media Delta and started Hazeltown Story, the following year. So what is the 4th year thing going to be? Because, I've done one every year. So I do have an idea. I don't know how well this is going to be, although I said the same thing about Hazeltown Story. So this might be something that people might be interested in, or they might not be. We'll see. So especially this is kind of a sister show to Hazeltown Story. Especially something that I've been wanting to do. One of the reasons I wanted to do Hazeltown Story was to build a universe for the various characters. And now that I have, in general, a pretty set world for them, especially this is something that I feel is appropriate for basically someone who's taken a look at a lot of games. why don't I try creating my own? So I'm still kind of, a lot of this is in training, is in kind of the create, like it's in, I still have a lot of things to figure out like solidly with it. But essentially one kind of episode a month, I want to start working on creating a game. I haven't figured out where I'm going to do it. Although I am pretty set in my mind, I want to create a Quest and Zelda classic. Because I feel like one is a little bit easier for me to figure out what kind of game, because especially thinking of a type of game for like the setting is kind of, you could go RPG, could go anything else. But especially since I'm pseudo familiar with Zelda Classic, it's actually something that when I was we taught of 12 years old, I actually made some Zelda Classic stuff. So it's something I'm kind of familiar with. And also, Zelda 1 is where I got my start in content creation, because my first LP back in August of 2015 was Zelda Randomizer. So I feel like doing something in the Zelda 1 engine, I feel is very appropriate for both me and, my channel, and just my content creation in general. So again, that's not set in stone yet, but it's kind of what I'm thinking. And I'm probably going to do the first episode Sunday, May 30th. I have that penciled in for that. I don't have a set in stone name for it either, although I have in my head Lolo type. I don't know if that's going to stick, but that's what I have it. That's its working title right now. Speaking of working titles, I should mention that for Hazeltown Story, you will see things just being uploaded. By things, I mean the last episode before this new arc, or this new system. I am referring to that now as Hazeltown Story Prototype, because it's me trying to build out Hazeltown Story now that I have this new system and some things about the world set a little bit more solidly. The new Hazeltown Story arc, or like not arc, but it will be uploaded as Hazeltown Story Discovery. What that means will be more apparent going forward, but that's just, if you're wondering why you see an upload that's Hazeltown Story Prototype and Hazeltown Story Discovery, that's what that means. Basically, it's a Season 1, Season 2. Although I'm really more thinking of it as Season 0, Season 1. So, that is that. And now, I actually think that's all I really wanted to cover. So there is a recap of, past, present, future of Lola the Puzzle Inc., I guess. Just my general thoughts on the, just stuff in general. And that's going to do it. I am going to shut this off before my throat gets even more sore than it already is right now, because I just talked for 53 minutes, practically nonstop, with one very specific thing to get water. So I think I'm going to stop talking for a little bit and just kind of relax my voice and finish watching Bear play these games. So, with that, happy, I guess technically this is its 3rd anniversary, but going into the 4th. So thanks for listening. Okay, where's the stop button?